Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of 2nd Maccabees, the 13th chapter. In the 149th year, it was told Judas that Antiochus Eupator was coming with a great power into Judea. That means like a large army. And with him Lysias, his protector and ruler of his affairs, having either of them a Grecian power of footmen, and 110,000, and horsemen 5,300, and elephants 22, and 300 chariots armed with hooks. So they were coming here to Judea with this like large-sized, army. Anybody with common sense could deduce that there's some ill intention here. Menelaus also joined himself with them, and with great dissimulation encouraged Antiochus. And that dissimulation basically being like a pretense, like lies. He encouraged Antiochus to come ahead with this large army against Judea, not for the safeguard of the country, but because he thought to have been made governor. So in trying to seek a way, an underhanded way to get power, he thought it'd be a good idea to bring Antiochus, egg him on, and bring him with this large army. But the King of Kings moved Antiochus's mind against this wicked wretch, the King of Kings being the Most High. And as it tells us in the book of Proverbs 21, I believe in 1, that the king's mind or the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. As rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. So the Lord moved or altered Antiochus's mind to be against Menelaus. And Lysias informed the king that this man was the cause of all mischief, so that the king commanded to bring him on to Berea. So, the Lord put in the thoughts in Antiochus's mind, also using Lysias to speak evil of Menelaus, which he was a demon. Basically, as it says, they commanded to bring him to Berea and to put him to death, as the manner is in that place. And this was a pretty brutal kind of death, actually, when you think about it. So it says here, now there was in that place a tower of 50 cubits high, full of ashes, and it had a round instrument which on every side hanged down into the ashes. And whosoever was condemned of sacrilege, or had committed any other grievous crime, there did all men thrust him unto death. Now, let's type in here. Where's this? All right. Sacrilege. So a violation or misuse of what is regarded as sacred. So this was basically like a tower, really like a pit almost. You could think of like a vertical holding where it was filled with ash, like actual ashes. And so they would push whoever was condemned to death into that tower, that deep pit of ashes. And that would be like a slow death, because the pile of ash is not in a state strong enough to hold you up, but at the same time, you don't just sink all the way to the bottom. So as you're in there, you're inhaling the ashes, and it's like a slow, agonizing, suffocating kind of death, okay, that Menelaus was condemned to. Verse 7, such a death it happened that wicked man to die. So this is the death that befell Menelaus, not having so much as burial in the earth, and that most justly. For inasmuch as he had committed many sins about the altar, whose fire and ashes were holy, he received his death in ashes. Now the king came with a barbarous and haughty mind to do far worse to the Jews than had been done in his father's time. So he came with very ill intentions, which things when Judas perceived, he commanded the multitude to call upon the Lord night and day, that if ever at any other time he would now also help them, being at the point to be put from their law, from their country, and from the holy temple. So they were in a very desperate situation, and they cried and fasted and called unto the Lord. They were now being on the brink of losing their laws, their country, their temple, everything, and that he would not suffer the people that had even now been a little refreshed, right, having been having gotten a little relief from the atrocities they suffered under Antiochus Epiphanes. Basically, they're praying that, as it says, having been a little refreshed, to be in subjection to the blasphemous nations, right, lest they should have to suffer something similar again. So when they had all done this together and besought the merciful Lord with weeping and fasting and lying flat upon the ground 3 days long, Judas, having exhorted them, commanded they should be in a readiness. So after this 3-day fast, he exhorted them to be ready, for what comes next. And Judas, being part with the elders, determined before the king's host should enter into Judea and get the city, to go forth and try the matter in fight by the help of the Lord. So he basically, planned it with the elders that before the king even gets close to enter into Judea, they would go out. Judas and his men would go out and fight, okay, and try to fight them off. Peradventure, they would have the help of the Lord. So when he had committed all to the Creator of the world, and exhorted his soldiers to fight manfully, even unto death, for the laws, the temple, the city, the country, and the commonwealth, he camped by Modin. And having given the watchword to them that were about him. Now the watchword was like a phrase, a secret phrase. And, as much as, you would use this during war, it was also mainly to prevent infiltration. It's like a password. Right, so the watchword being here, victory is of God. Say somebody approached a camp, right, or you approached, to their camp, they would ask, right, what's the watchword? And if the person didn't know, then they would know this person would either be detained or killed, but they would know this person is clearly not of them. With the most valiant and choice young men, he went into the king's tent by night, and slew in the camp about 4,000 men, and the chiefest of the elephants with all that were upon them. So they snuck in by night and slew, of Antiochus's army 4,000 men. And at last they filled the camp with fear and tumult, and departed with good success. This was done in the break of day, so at dawn basically, because the protection of the Lord did help him. So the Lord gave them, good success in accomplishing this. Now, when the king had taken a taste of the manliness of the Jews, he went about to take the holds by policy. So basically, when he had, gotten a taste of how strong the Jews were, he decided to try and take the strongholds by devices, by plans, by, alternative means, aside from direct conflict. That's what it means by policy. And marched toward Bethsura, which was a stronghold of the Jews, but he was put to flight, failed, and lost of his men. For Judas had conveyed unto them that were in it such things as were necessary. So he gave them all the things they needed, tools, weapons, victuals, whatever, to be able to defend themselves and to fight back. Hence, they were able to. But Rhodicus, who was in the Jews' host, disclosed the secrets to the enemies. Therefore, he was sought out, and when they had gotten him, they put him in prison. So this guy was a traitor, basically, that was exposing the secrets, whether it was like secret passages or plans, routes, all those things to the enemy. Verse 22. The king treated with them in Bethsum. So now here the author, basically to keep the abridgment, all right, true, he basically just hits the main points here. right? So as it says, the king treated with them in Bethsum the second time, gave his hand, took theirs. So he made an agreement with them, with the Jews. They shook on it, you could say, departed, fought with Judas, was overcome, right? He came. This is Slakia. He basically made an agreement with them of Bethsum. He went, fought with Judas, and he lost. Heard that Philip, who was left over the affairs in Antioch, was desperately bent, confounded, entreated the Jews, submitted himself, and sware to all equal conditions, agreed with them, and offered sacrifice, honored the temple, and dealt kindly with the place. And this was also, I believe, in First Maccabees. I forget the exact chapter, but Lysias being concerned about the affairs of the kingdom, considering that Philip was, basically making it, he was already in there, claiming Antiochus, put him in charge. They had to leave um, from trying to go against the Jews to go and make sure that everything was good in their kingdom. So that's why it says here, that basically they ended up making an agreement with the Jews to call it a day. And accepted well of Maccabeus, made him principal governor from Ptolemais onto Gerhanians. Came to Ptolemais, the people there were grieved for the covenants, for they stormed, because they would make their covenants void. So they were upset with these deals that were made between the king and the Jews, and so they were, pretty much you could say like protested it. What they really wanted to do is make it void. Lysias went up to the judgment seat, said as much as could be in defense of the cause, persuaded, pacified, made them well affected, returned to Antioch. So he basically explained it to them, he calmed them down, he got people on board, and then he returned back to Antioch. Thus it went, touching the king's coming and departing. So this was the account of when Antiochus Eupator came to, to Judea and how things transpired. And that brings us to the end of the book of 2 Maccabees, the 13th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.